how much it costs on a bus or an omnibus and any other form of transport that has been provided, so that you do the planning. It doesn't make sense for you to arrive at the bus park and then you plan for 40,000 Uganda shillings and you're told it's 45,000. That could affect your ability to buy the kilogram or two of meat or beef on Christmas Day. But we shall leave it at that and return to the studio. We have eminent gentlemen today, this morning, who have accepted our invitation at a very difficult moment as the year makes the turn. Usually people are traveling up country and we get a little bit of trouble trying to get hold of many of our panelists, but we are glad we have in our studio this morning Captain Francis Babu, as well as renowned, I'm a veteran politician and a commentator, Joseph Otieno. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us this morning. Right now it's Christmas mood. Many remarks are going around. Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas. I love to begin to say Merry Christmas, especially 36 hours to the day.
Yes.
Wow. That's when I love to say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You enjoy that. You enjoy countdown.
The countdown.
Yes.
The anticipation. It more takes me back to the early days when I was younger, that is in the 90s, and Christmas was something really huge. Is it something for especially your grandchildren right now? Do you see the anticipation, especially granddaddy or daddy, especially to your sons? Where is the dress? Where is this?
Well,
is it the same excitement?
Let's say good morning to our viewers at the same time. Wish them a very Merry Christmas week. At the same time, tell them that Christmas is something that is very interesting. It is a myth that was brought about. It comes with the religion, and not only that, it's embedded in us, even as children, regardless of where we are on the planet. We have got a way of celebrating it. Even those who do not believe in it, they actually do celebrate it. But the important thing is a family day.
Do they celebrate or they ride the wave?
No, they do. They join in one way or the other. They're either on a holiday. They might not have a meet or anything like that, but at least they're somewhere. Now, the important thing is that we, as we grow up, we must learn something that brings us together as a family. And a Christmas, in my opinion, is a family day. Brings us together. Our children, our prodigal sons and daughters do turn up sometimes. And what is important is that the father also becomes mellow to their children and their family and their wives. And that's the day, for us when we were young, you would get some clothes. They would buy you some nice clothes and you'd have a new pair of trousers or shoes or whatever it was. Now, that goes a long way to make you remember that day. So most of us remember those very, very simple things. The food, it's not the normal way
It's not the normal way of eating.
Now today, of course, our people have gone into different levels, but it is an important day for all of us. And as Ugandans, I think we should reflect back and say, what are the good things that put us together as a Ugandan family?
That's right.
Ugandan family. I'm not talking, I've gone from the home family, I'm now talking about Ugandan family. What should put us together? Our head of state, our leaders, regardless whoever they are, whatever differences we have, this is the time we should put our differences away and try and make it a day for the Ugandan family. Now let us get something very interesting. A few minutes ago you were talking about transport. I would stand on NTV here and ask the proprietors, the association of these bus companies, that please make this day memorable to our travelers. Don't cheat them. Treat them well. And those brokers who are around the bus park, they should be warned not to cheat our people when they are going up country. And this is something that we should do, if you like, something we should remember, that I took part in Christmas.
That's right.
So all those things I'm talking about is Christmas.
It's Christmas. Joseph Otieno, I'm sure you agree sentimentally with Captain Francis Babu.
No, very much. And yes, Merry Christmas to fellow citizens and everyone else. But it just strikes me that my dad was a very quiet guy. And as I was growing up, he used to not drink alcohol. And it was on Christmas Eve that you would see excess smiles in him as he slaughtered the turkey and put it over the kitchen roof, and then the thing was done. And then he would hit the Catholic drum and pray.
That's right.
And so it was actually very interesting. And number two, obviously, it's true that that was when you expected the occasional shot, or in our case, the occasional shots in Nagongera, and you really look into anticipation how the then Christmas days is going to be. And then it's true, it will be very much of a big family thing. I must say, though, that when I found myself in exile, that's when I came to understand the appreciation of the turkey and how these guys, particularly the Brits, took it very, very seriously. And then, of course, all the madness of everything else, and then it goes off. But Captain Babu was talking about something interesting about our leaders. Other countries, I actually don't know about industry here, but elsewhere, that is also the time when employers give Christmas bonuses.
Yes.
So they're really very good to the employers. Now, I'm not quite sure whether that will happen in town here or not.
All right. My company is going to give everybody a basket to take home.
Oh, wow.
My CV is on the way. because you link that to the transportation where people then go ahead and exploit and abuse. But then very quickly, Chris, when I returned, I found a very big shock in Nagongera in 2005 Christmas, when I went to buy more drinks, sodas, and to find a stream of over hundreds of young people streaming the streets after prayers. And then I asked myself, what has very quickly changed? This is about nearly 15, 20 years ago, where there's so many young people out in the street, instead of being with the families, and where are they? Fast forward to where today, I don't know what's going to be happening over this particular season. But yes, Christmas ideally should be more for family season, a reunion, a point of reflection, and where leadership is involved. Maybe a point for us to begin to think and work together, harmonize, so that we build, the next season after it goes into the new year, and then you start afresh. Yeah.
Allow me just carry on from the point of reflection, factor. We find ourselves after a year that has been eventful, one that has let us do things a little more freer than we did the previous year on account of the pandemic and so many other things. So you would want to look back at 2022 as a year that gave many an opportunity to rebound from recovery. No doubt about that. When you look at Uganda in general, the economy, the households, has the recovery been the one that we ought to go through, or it's a case of fits and starts?
A lot of people find it very easy to comment and criticize. But looking at the global situation of which we are part.
That's right.
There are certain things which are totally beyond us. But there are those which are within our ambit, and we can do something about it. For example, within our ambit, the government has tried to put things together so that they could get out of this problem. But our power, our strength, if you took a SWOT analysis,
that's right.
Where is our strength? And what is our weaknesses? What is our opportunities? Now, there are certain bad habits which had come a long time back. And with the shock of COVID and this Russian war, those habits do not augur very well in a recovery.
That's right.
In an economy. And therefore, you find people are saying all sorts of things without really thinking. I remember one time when the government said, no, we are not going to subsidize fuel, but we are going to work in the background and make sure the economy comes to a level and try and get fuel so that it comes out normally using economic factors. And today, the fuel has come down at least 1,000 shillings. So that brings me to saying there are certain things which must be accepted when experts, like the Bank of Uganda, economists and things like that, do tell us that certain things must be done in a certain way.
That's right.
Now, a lot of our people think that there's a magic wand somewhere. When something happens, you get a rabbit out of a hat. No, this cannot happen.
It can happen
what
like
really
that.
happens is that you must work out slowly. And I would like to thank the economists. Of course, they are not perfect.
They're not perfect.
They also make mistakes. But at least they have tried, for example, to look at the inflation, which I sometimes get this feeling Are they giving us the right numbers? Is this the true numbers? Until I had the permanent secretary of finance saying, listen, we cannot hide numbers. Because if we do, the World Bank will give you those numbers. If we do, somebody else will give you those numbers. So the numbers we're giving you are actually accurate.
Only for them to disagree with the World Bank on certain statistics.
Oh, yeah. No, they were agreeing where, yeah, they agreed when the World Bank was given an earlier statistics, they were giving a projected statistics, which are totally different things. But anyway, at the end of the day, the little bit that has been, we need a little bit more to be done. For example, we need to review our URA, Uganda Revenue Authority, which by their eagerness to try and manage taxes, they're actually throwing out businessmen out of the market, and that eventually will affect us. And the idea is that you must work with the businessmen. I'm not saying they should not pay tax. I'm saying they should try and find out better. For example, they've got a new thing on the computer they've brought, where they were sitting in every supermarket, and every time you came out, you give them your chili. But they have done this to other companies. You buy a computer and we want this kind of software. That's computer and software. It costs up to 9 million shillings. Now they want companies to manage their tax management, which I think is wrong. I think URA should really stop managing other people's business. Let them manage URA.
All right.
I find this especially with the government agencies. They like to manage organizations. You can't. Organizations are managed on a lot of culture organizations. Management of culture is different. And therefore you, who is a very smart man, who can run URA and banks and whatnot, please don't manage our organizations.
All right.
I think you kill them.
You kill them.
Yeah. What you should do, find a medium where you can work together. And by the way, nobody has said that businessmen do not play on tax evasion. It's part of the game.
Joseph Otieno, Captain Francis Babu seems to be wearing the business hat this morning, and you cannot discount it for him because he is a very astute businessman at that. The politician, the activist, the commentator in you, 2022 has given us a lot to ponder on and perhaps lay a foundation for greater prosperity coming into 2023. What are these that we should hold on to and make the foundation for that kind of progress later in the new year?
You've just given me the ticket to slightly disagree with Captain putting the political element and the broader perspective.
Yeah.
I must say that on the question of subsidy, I fundamentally disagreed with this government when they opted exceptionally across the world not to support the citizens of this country. Subsidies are normal things in democracies, including the most powerful, the most organized, and indeed, actually, perhaps the most competitive capitalist states like America. There are provisions for that. In the Ugandan state, particularly considering that it's a very small state when it comes to key services, in terms of public services, in terms of health education and health education and state transportation, and even agriculture, it was only fair that the poorer citizens were sort of cushioned. I was in UK 3-4 months ago, and to this extent that my former residents, still the local government was able to provide cushions for all residents, regardless of their level of income, to cushion them, considering that winter was coming. So by and large, I think this guy's, it's a fairly good economic argument. But in terms of a state where the government is the parent in a household, I don't think they did that very well. That said, Captain Babu suggests the question of how quickly Uganda Revenue Authority comes back to begin to taunt businesses, which businesses, many of them actually struggled. In a way, it may actually have an impact on how quickly we're able to revive as an economy. But beyond that, I think Uganda is a fairly lucky state because particularly because most of our citizens at the subsistence level who would otherwise struggle don't particularly struggle as much as maybe the Kenyan average Kenyan citizen who struggle on the lower echelon. So maybe that, for that reason, we will be able to have a much more quicker recovery. But people who own private schools, I'm not very particularly kind to private schools. I'm a person who believes in big government, and so therefore much more public education and much more public health provisions, have struggled. And I know a number of schools that actually closed, in part because of the manner in which perhaps we manage this, but we also government sort of outsourced the idea of after COVID, let's find our own level. Neither here nor there. Granted, here's where we are, but how do we move forward? I think moving forward is such that I hope that at the beginning of the year we will be looking at a review and perhaps using this season to review what happened around COVID, how we managed COVID, some of the senseless deaths that actually did occur. Talking about Christmas, I'll take you back to what Captain Babu was talking about transportation. I just used this Christmas season to say that, as I was coming to the studios, I was considering where our trains, I'll keep on talking about them, where our trains, where our public buses, where perhaps we're able to have, you were talking about public transport before we came on air, but you hear talk about private taxis, which is basically public. Here I'm talking about state-managed, state-controlled, state-regulated transportation systems. If we had those things, the kind of the struggles that you saw taking place in Old Kampala perhaps would not be able to happen. And again, I look around the world, and all of us have gone around the world. It does not happen the Ugandan way. Uganda still needs to learn quite a lot of lessons going forward, particularly because of the new world, where COVID has actually shown us that, well, economies are substantially vulnerable. We shall begin to become a much more thinking community. So we need to be able to begin to invest in our youth, invest in infrastructure, invest in technology. And the more we do that, the more we shall be thinking of possibilities of whatever happens in the next 20 years, like COVID. Maybe Uganda should be able to be competitive and to manage it as well as everywhere else. But very quickly, as you said, I think this is important. I know we're going to go into that topic. We cannot talk about transportation and omit the fact that yesterday Uganda lost a legislator in the boundaries of our communities of in Bukedi, and in a very, very sad manner. And whatever happens, I know that I'm opening that, but I feel really, really sad for this family. I feel really sad for him. I feel really sad for the National Assembly. And as someone who's actually lost close major families, members in a road transportation accident in this country, I hope this is a wake-up call. And as we're going to discuss Parliament, I hope that there is an open way in which we're able to discuss manners in which we're able to mitigate unnecessary loss of life.
Joseph Otieno, many thanks for that.
In fact, there's one point we should be very clear. You know that Entebbe Expressway? When it rains, people should drive very slowly. Very slowly. It's very slippery and very dangerous.
Yeah, there you have it. If you are a motorist and, of course, using the Entebbe Expressway and just about any other road within the country, especially the highways during this during the festive season, you've got to pay attention to aspects of speed and being cautious as you go about that. Very, very touching and poignant transition into our topic on the performance of Parliament 2022. You spoke very passionately about the way forward, and I would like to ask Captain Francis Babu, does the 11th Parliament understand the need for the way forward?
Yeah, there's a lot of programs, by the way, and the 11th Parliament has got 529 members. It's a very big parliament, and from the time they've come, they've got different committees, and different committees do different jobs. Some of them have done reasonably well, others have had their ups and downs. I mean, it is really natural for a parliament to go through. Of course, we do have a few people who entertain us in that parliament, and I would like to thank them because it makes the day. But at the end of it all, what do we expect out of it ourselves? And under the circumstances, with COVID, with all these problems they've had, what can Parliament do? Because most of the policies of running the country, most of the laws come actually from the executive arm of government. And then Parliament will now the other one comes from the Auditor General, who tells us who has stolen what, who's done what. But at the end of the day, within you know, you've got to give them within reason. They have done a reasonable job. Forget about this small corruption you hear about. People are corrupt here. People are doing this. People are calling each other names. These are things we're learning. But Parliament goes through a development phase like a human being. They develop. Parliament does undergo development, and people learn. The Parliament, within its ambit, is doing reasonably well. They can do better. But that is something that they've got to sit down and look at. Some of them who are seasoned are doing very, very well. Those who ask are doing very well. Those who don't ask are entertaining us. In fact, you know, there was this thing in America where they asked, they said the difference between the Jew, the Chinese, and the African. And they said, oh, the Jew sits down and thinks about making money. The Chinese does the same. The black man entertains America. So the whole thing is, we have a lot of entertainers, but we're not going to waste our time on those, because Parliament is, they are not even 10%, by the way, the people who do those funny things. So the majority of members of Parliament are doing a very, 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 very good job. Now, there's of course a few things. You need a cue. Leadership of Parliament must be steady. If you make political statements which are rather skewed, it gives the Parliament a bad name. You should learn how to speak. Because somebody's got bad manners, and you are the speaker, and then you turn out, you go to a public meeting, and you say things which also drowns you, it's very unfortunate. So the leadership has to learn that a speaker is not supposed, they are supposed to have public relations. People who speak on behalf of Parliament and speak, they should not actually go out and make statements. Because a statement which was made recently about old people and young people and ideology not edible, and unfortunately was, in my opinion, was shallow.
Joseph Otieno, hearing Captain Francis Babu speak, you see a gentleman who has seen it all, who knows the nitty-gritty of legislation and the fact that there's a lot more being done than what meets the eye, and entertainers seem to kind of take the day and give an impression that perhaps there could be a lot more of a circus parade. But when you have the top people within Parliament acting like the lead performers on this circus parade, then it becomes hard to agree that the kind of legislation that we have is quality.
It's unfortunate, I think, because I told this program, I think, as we're discussing the margins of this new assembly, that I had a lot of hope in now the late speaker. I'll go back just to give context, Jacob Oulanyah, whom I had intended to support in pushing some of the other new skills that some of the parliamentarians might require, including on some of the things that Captain Babu hints on, research and making sure that guys go ahead and make informed and not only conversations and debates and critique and in the assembly, but that perhaps they become genuinely serious representative and leaders of what exactly they should be doing. Unfortunately, Parliament is supposed to be the voice of the people, and part of my measurement of them is not only what they say and do in the assembly and how they relate many of these things with a fervor in terms of what I see around the country as I go. And for that, I still mark them rather low. Well, number two, on the question of leadership, and that's why I link to the question of the hint about the current speaker and what may or may not necessarily have been, including the deputy speaker. I was privileged to meet the last, I call him the last Mr. Speaker very deliberately, the last UPC speaker, Mr. Francis Butagira.
Oh, excellent.
Fantastic guy. Fantastic old guy. The guy's mellowed in his
Why do you talk about the cream?
You know, and every time, and maybe to the current assembly,
it will offer the context that we want.
No, if you bring him, then we are no contest.
so really, so maybe I'm being very unfair based on my own relationships, as it were. You know, up to a few weeks ago seated and you have these conversations and the guy talks and is not in a hurry, but is Mr. Wisdom. Now, that is the quality of leadership you require in the National Assembly, because that's the parent you need in order for you to be able to exercise the role of the legislator. But I must say that looking at parliaments around the world, the circus, usually, they're generally there. But part of the circus must be linked to substance.
Yeah.
You know, I know a legislator in the UK, Mr. Dennis Skinner, who told the Prime Minister, Dodgy Dave, you know, and this Dennis Skinner sits in a particular corner, he keeps time, he's one of the best performers in Parliament, you know, and he will pick on key issues and very popular. So, if you're making saccharous positions, taking a saccharous position in the National Assembly, let it be linked to what you went there to do. In other words, in terms of checking the executive, checking the other elements of government, making sure that you legislate properly. But in most cases, everything else that you guys do are directly linked to the services that you are required to deliver and provide for the citizens. When I look at where we are at the moment, some of the early conversations we have been able to talk about, I'll come back to the UPC way. You know, you are not a parliament unless you're pushing, you know, for quality and equitable distribution in terms of our national resources. You're not really doing it unless you're ensuring that educational services is top quality. You're not doing it unless you're able to boost up an agricultural performance. You're not doing it unless you're making Uganda become part of a competitive East Africa. Instead, today, in terms of education, as I said, I keep on saying this to communities. Up to 20, 30 years ago, Ugandan primary school teachers were teaching Kenyan secondary schools.
And
today,
Tanzania.
And Tanzania. And today, where are we? So really, Parliament possibly, therefore, is a reflection of the broader Malays, national Malays. But because they're such a privileged assembly, and because they're so competitive when they're going there, and because they're relatively well numerated, I've got friends of mine there, you know, they should be doing better than most average people. And by the way, I want to say this again very quickly. I have visited a number of districts, Captain Babu, in the last several months. And turns out that actually, I became very, very, very much of a big supporter to local governments, where chairpersons get a pittance of 2-3 million shillings a month. You know, and these guys are burdened with huge responsibilities, particularly rural local government communities, whether they're Molatar, they're Parchis, or maybe the extreme end of, you know, some of them, of course, the districts that you and I struggle to know. You know, these guys struggle. And in some of those districts, there are more than 3, 4, 5 legislators. And these guys actually fixing some of the jobs, including going to district chairpersons to ask for money for treatment for malaria. This is what legislators should be coming to have conversation of it. If they're playing the circus, let them be putting the health minister to task. Where is the money? Where is the budgetary provisions for this? Where is the money for research? Where is the money for education?
That's right. Captain.
I'm very happy what he's just said. The first parliaments of NRM, when we came 2006, 2005, and then the other one which followed, they did a fantastic job. Even the NRC, they did exactly what he was talking about. But let me quickly say this. I am one of those promoters. Without any fear of favor, this parliament is too big for our economy.
I was coming to that.
And I'm saying, how can we go about it? And I like the way he brought it up. The other day when we were sending off the Right Honourable Speaker, I had his local parliament debate, his local council. I was impressed. Excellent. Are you with me?
I'm with you.
Now,
I'm with
what
you on
he's
that.
telling me, shouldn't we rethink the model we have? We have a central government, and then we have a parliament, which is center. Can we make them regional parliaments?
Okay.
So that we have West Nile has a chief minister and a legislative council. The Greater North have a you can call him a chief minister, prime minister, or whatever you like. You can even call him a governor. I don't mind. You go to the east, you break the east into two, northern east, southern east. You have these regions.
You're my governor.
Are you with me? You then have Buganda, you can divide it into 2 or 1, I don't care. You go to Kigezi, you come to Ankole, you come to the Rwenzori, you go. And once you have these regions, now you can have members of parliament, members of legislative councils there, like they have in India.
That's right.
Now when you have them there, because they are slightly bigger, it means the economy is a little bit bigger, and therefore they can get money to run their areas. We can then put them to task to provide the service. These guys can have the big stuff. They are the security, they can have foreign affairs, all sorts of things. And they can help to devolve money to those local people. Basically what you're saying, that is our Christmas present, by the way, to the people in leadership. Can they go back to the table and remodel this country
and review,
so that we can get services? Now, once that is done, I want to say this. Nobody is against anybody in Parliament.
No.
We are just saying that it's very expensive to run that organization.
And it's not working.
And it's not working. Now, the other gentleman who made a statement that let us have a small parliament and the rest of the money, send it to pay the policemen and the security and medical workers and what do you call them, the teachers. Fantastic. Those small things, we can solve them eventually. What I'm trying to say, let us get all the good things that unite us. You know, there are things that unite Ugandans.
That's right.
Let's get them. For example, a football match between Uganda and Nigeria unites us.
Very nice.
Is there something else that can unite us? Yes, there is. How do we bring it together so that we can make a country? And even the leaders should learn that I hear a lot of arguments. 30 years of leadership. Yes, 30 years of leadership because of our weaknesses. We have failed to if you like, to groom leaders. Grooming leaders starts in the village. It does not start in Kampala. You don't come to Kampala and you're a businessman and then you go to bribe to be employed in an organization.
I noticed, Captain Francis Babu, before we come to Joseph Chedo and you give us a perspective on exactly that, which is itching. You have often, and I must be very specific about this, you have often seemed not to want to put President Yoweri Museveni on the spot, especially when it comes to conditioning some of the political landscape and how it is shaped. When you talk about the fact that you just said something which is very poignant, leadership.
Yes.
And the fact that we do not create a pipeline.
Yes.
At the center of creation of this pipeline is a head of state and the machinery or the infrastructure that he has. Why don't you want to be seen to tell Mr. Museveni?
To be seen? Why should I be seen? I can tell him without being seen. The problem is most of you want visibility to go and say that you talked about the president. I don't need visibility.
What have you told the president?
I can tell the president in the right forum and I have many things I have said. But I cannot come here. You see, you must respect your leadership regardless of what you think.
That's right.
You do not come here and start saying, like, what was that thing in the Bible where the children saw the old man with a bit naked and everybody was laughing?
Exposing the father's nakedness. These days in politics, there are very many who are doing
the other young man went and covered the father. Now,
that's right.
You do not do that in terms of simple, you know, what do you call it, in etiquettes. No, you must get a place where you can tell the president what you want to tell him. But you don't go around, you know, putting his nakedness everywhere. The president is a human being. He definitely makes mistakes.
Yep.
He definitely has done mistakes. And now, a good president would make a mistake and correct it. So I don't need to sit here and start telling, please, can you correct your mistake? I think this is where a lot of people are getting it wrong. I've seen people talking for the last, you said he has been here for 30 years? People have been talking for the last 20 years. They are still talking.
The reason I say this, and you will agree with me that a Ugandan out there also perhaps thinks the way I am thinking, you throw blame on the lower levels and the need for people at the lower level to do things in a transformational way, and often look like you do not want to put on the spot the powers that be and their ability to condition this kind of transformation.
Let's get an example.
Yeah.
Government sits in cabinet. They pass a policy on what they call it, parish model.
Yeah.
All right? After the president and everybody has written, it is very well written, very well documented, who takes it over again? The man who implements it. Is the president who implements it? No. It is everybody, from the president to me. We are all part of it.
That's right.
But we cannot keep on, President, the parish model is not working. You got the money, you stole it at the district level. You are now talking about the president. I think the president must be blamed where he's going wrong, that some of his cronies, now I can say that openly.
Thank you very much.
Some of his cronies, cronyism is very rampant in this country. And
very quickly, we need to go for a break.
Yeah. These cronies are the ones causing a lot of problems in our country. There are hundreds of projects which have been written by this government. They are within different ministries. The question is the implementation. Nobody implements them. Now, somebody is not going to come from the president's office to run a health center for. No.
Captain Francis Babu,
yes.
Let's go into a break. Okay. Joseph Otieno, when we return, I'll be putting the question to you. When a president stands on national television or at any other platform across the country and says, if you do not elect so and so, then things won't work out because there won't be cooperation, doesn't that create a problem?
Of course.
Especially when it comes to implementation of some of the projects. We shall go for a break. The conversation continues.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
A very good morning and welcome back from that break for those that have been with us right from the beginning of the discussion. If you're just joining us, welcome on board. You are watching Morning at NTV and this is the Kickstarter discussion. We are discussing the Parliamentary Performance 2022 and of course looking at what should have been, what can be and what ought to be, especially as we look to the turn of the year. We went into the break and Captain Francis Babu, who is one of two gentlemen on the show this morning, was telling us about the dynamics that the president finds himself in. I was asking the question, if the president can stand on a campaign podium and ask the population to vote politicians that are agreeable to him in order to ensure implementation of key government services, shouldn't we put the blame at a certain point on the president and his ability to compel a population to act the way he wants? One time, long time ago, the president said, I do not care what a member of parliament does. They can sleep as long as they can wake up, raise their hand and vote in favor of the policies that I want. I would like to put it to you, Joseph Otieno. Captain Francis Babu stayed away from that. Do you think the president must be told that some of the shape of the politics of the day is largely as a result of some of the statements, especially when it comes to the bloated nature of the National Assembly?
No, I understand, Captain Babu. I do not have a slightly different privilege in the sense that the president governs this country and has done so for the last 37 years without my mandate. So I'm slightly much more free to say this. But look, no, it's absolutely the responsibility of the head of state to take on each and everything that happens in the country, by and large, good or bad. But particularly leadership, including our families, when things go wrong, including with our children, it is our responsibility to take hold, simply say, you know, take the lead on that and acknowledge and seek to correct.
That's right.
When it comes to the question, particularly the one you raised, about policies, where a president comes and says, vote for these policies or you'll not get the services, if it is contextualized, because I'm a politician too, that look, vote for UPC program, vote for UPC candidate if you want to get decent health and education, you know, and agricultural services, that is fine. But if I am actually president and I come into a particularly poor area, like in Molatar, and I tell them that you guys are silly, you are poor because you voted for the wrong person. A president, once elected, is elected for the whole country. A member of parliament, once elected, is elected for a whole constituency. A local council executive, once elected, is elected for the whole community. So, you fellow citizens, politicians who are elected to serve everybody. Mr. Museveni is absolutely responsible for all, and if not all, the key messes that have taken place in this country, including that which he should really have gone ahead and put a check on it. I think, like we said earlier, and we don't want to spoil the conversation, that this is a time for reflection, that we give him an opportunity, since he's lucky to have another several other years to the next election, because for us in UPC, we don't think shortcuts like he did, you know, that we wait for the next elections. He still has 2 or 3 years to make corrections, particularly because now an elderly person is actually in Mr. Museveni's givings to say, look, fellow citizens, we've been around for quite some time. You young guys, particularly maybe the Chaebwas and everybody else, you know, you should talk nicely and maybe learn lessons from us. We know that we should have done better in certain areas we did not do. Maybe take this leaf out of this and do it in this way. Secondly, you took a hint on the question of leadership, nurturing leaders. That's extremely important. I am lucky that in UPC, we actually do it rather well. But while today we are struggling, because of coming out of some of the complications, you know, it is very clear, and this is official. You go to a youth organization where Uganda People's Congress involved, even if that's a university level, you'll actually find by and large generally competent leaders. But how does it happen? It happens this way. That by the time, and I've told some young UPC activists, those days some of them possibly couldn't get it very well, that you learn from the family, we learn through schools, we learn through debating, we learn through social gatherings, we become active local councillors, do well, the community supports us as possible, likely good candidates to represent in the National Assembly growing up, and then after that you take national responsibilities. So generally by the time we become leaders, and that's obviously this, by the time we become leaders where perhaps a president is able to support you to become a good candidate, say for a junior minister, a senior minister, for that matter perhaps taking national leadership, including political parties, you should generally by and large be competent leaders. But if you're in a state in which one person has ruled and controlled one political organization for over 50 years, neither here nor there. If you're in a state in which perhaps competitive ideas, even within the same political organization, is restricted, it becomes difficult. The last 2 by-elections I've seen in Maina-Gongora, NRA candidates, you know, fighting each other, including perhaps bringing out arms, meaning much more seriously at war.
That's right.
Primarily primaries to basically to compete to become parliamentary candidates. Those are some of the councils that have been built around this. Because why? Partly patronage, and partly because people are so much into this thing that people just don't believe that they can be life outside politics. But why do you blame them? Mr. Museveni has been around for such a long time in one position, so privileged, that I absolutely have no reason why I can't believe that this man who's actually Christian is a decent guy, Mr. Museveni, you know, very, very much around Christianity and faith and things like that, cannot say that, look, you know, let me give a possibility for a new emergence of leaders within his own political organization. It's not surprising that now we don't know whether his son treats for him or treats for somebody else, his son-in-law treats for him or treats for somebody else, or in this case, who within the family. And I'm saying this in a good way. So it's that bad in NRM. So what about everybody else who are actually lining up, including people who want to point score in the National Assembly because they want to be queue number 3?
Okay, let's get perspective from Captain Francis Babu in relation to the young Turks and the older folk within the National Resistance Movement. You also help us understand the fact that intrigue or war within a ruling party like the National Resistance Movement inevitably comes into the National Assembly by virtue of the numbers, and that we are victims of that kind of intrigue, yet we are supposed to be debating at another level away from the national, or rather the governing party.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start with this argument. I'd like to thank him because he said UPC was grooming people. I'd like to thank them for having groomed our president, because he came from UPC.
He came from UPC.
Yeah, now let's go. If a lot of people...
He was in UPC for 6 months, just to clarify, but UPC for 9 years. His man has got UPC
a lot of people who followed him in NRM came from UPC.
Came from UPC, no doubt about that.
So the grooming, you know, you can see the level. So You know, we have to be very, very careful when we make statements in this country. The environment is changing, the population is increasing, education is changing, and people have different ways and perspective of looking at things. Therefore, every party has the same problem, the one you're asking me about. Every party, inside the party, they have their own small conflicts.
It's a real culture. It's a real culture.
There are conflicts there. Now, you're talking about NRM. As far as I'm concerned, NRM started getting off the course. Immediately we went multi-party. Immediately we went multi-party. They came up with something completely new. He was talking about looking, going to look for leadership. Young people started realizing that they had to use other methods to get into NRM. We one time had a reform agenda. We had Young Parliamentarian Association. We had PAFO. And we had and the thing about the young and the old started then.
That's right.
All right? It started in Parliament, in NRC, even before we went into multi-parties. So this is something that was changing. The change came up with these. These were the side effects of change. Now, when these came, I remember very well some of them told me, "We are tired of you." You know, they will tell you openly on their face, which was unfortunate. I thought we were losing a little bit of our culture. And therefore, the person who was telling you he was tired of you is somebody who should be groomed to become a minister.
Kind of.
All right? So these things started. And it started in that wave. And it came up. And people think, because recently some people got some votes because there's a new thing, that there is a lot of young people around who are not being looked after. Everybody is against them. And, you know, this is the talk. So people use it as a strategy to get votes. Now, but let's look at it very carefully. I don't think anybody in any party is against the youth. The problem is the way we are and what we are trying to do. If you look at NRM itself, NRM has a league for the youth. The complete league. Yeah. It's got a league. Let's forget about the other leagues. Let's talk about the youth only. Then, within the different levels of governance, they've got youth representatives. They brought this one up. I'm not the one that brought it up. No, we better talk about this.
All right.
Within the government, when the man is appointing his people, he puts it. Now, the other day I asked my friend, apart from Museveni and maybe one or two other people, the majority of people in this government are young. The people in civil service are young. So this talk, we must now open it wide. Instead of saying Museveni is old, they are telling everybody this one is, there are too many old people here. There's only President Museveni, maybe people like Otafire or something.
No, when we speak about old persons holding positions of power or responsibility, especially with regard to government, are people aged above 65.
It doesn't matter. The Declaration of Human Rights in the world says everybody has a right to take part in politics. You are actually going against the Declaration of Human Rights. Oh, yes. Older persons are free to take part in politics. And when you do that, you're actually going against the rights of the old people.
Isn't that down to the fact that a culture
No, you're talking about working in civil service where they have an age. In the government, there's no age limit in standing for politics.
A 75-year-old still holding the whims in public service.
Yes. Not public service, no. Public service is different.
Is different?
That is civil service, where people have got, there's age limit, I think 65. Forget about it.
And then there are attempts
we are talking about politics,
amend age?
No, we are talking about electing. Don't you see the president was very comfortable when he went to the States? He met his friend. They talk the same language. Now,
but his friend will not be there for more than 8 years.
No,
but that's the point.
It doesn't matter.
All right.
There was a man recently in Malaysia. He was 94.
Yes.
And I'm trying to tell you, it is a universal declaration of human rights that even elders who start from 60, by the way,
can govern effectively,
are free as long as they are biologically okay. They can stand for election.
Democratically elected?
Yeah, democratically elected.
And they respect the Constitution?
Yes. That one, in fact, the more you people talk, I laugh at you. I can see this juvenile enthusiasm. But we have to
a nation
by the
that
way,
needs the kind of enthusiasm that we provide.
Recently in Tanzania, starting from Mzee Nyerere, he groomed certain people and put them in a line.
Yeah.
And he immediately, because he wanted the unity of Tanzania and Zanzibar, the man who went after him was a Zanzibari from Unguja. Then after that, two people were very prominent in Chama cha Mapinduzi, Mkapa and Mrisho Kikwete. Kikwete was very popular because he was playing that youth game, the one you are playing here. The old man said, no, you are all very nice people, but Kikwete, you are young. Let him go first, you go after. You had to have an elder to make that decision.
That's right.
Because he had nothing to lose.
Fair enough.
So,
I love
I'm coming.
I love the context.
Recently, when they were electing Magufuli before he passed on, when he was being elected, there was contestation which was very, very hard. A group of elders, former presidents, and sat down and said, no, let Magufuli go.
Okay.
You're very nice, you stay behind. Now, we need elders and young people in the system. Now, let me put it this way. Unlike other people, I want all Ugandans who can contribute in building these nations to be there.
Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Why isn't there a clearly visible line or a system that can identify who could be and can be a leader? Right now, you spoke about the fact that Mzee Nyerere was able to put that into place, so much so that when Magufuli was coming on board, others were told, please do this. Kikwete, you're young, move aside, let this one go first, you will have a chance to. Why don't we seem to have that kind of clear trajectory, something that emboldens our own trust as a people into the leadership pipeline?
When I make you a leader and I vote you, and you became His Excellency, you become Right Honorable Prime Minister, you become I expect you to do exactly that. So when I spoke now, please listen to me and take that example and use it. I don't have to drum it on you.
The man has embraced the need to speak on national television and tell the leadership what to do. Do you think it is the best thing to do, or should we leave the leaders of the day to figure it out themselves, and when they reach a point where they are magnanimous enough to tell us?
Just very quickly, before God comes in. You know in America what they do? All this super brain, they put them in Institute of Economics, Strategic Studies, and these ones they feed into Washington.
Do you agree with that? Can it work here?
No, I think Captain Babu is an elder and is spoken, and I get, and all of us get, and I'm sure all the viewers get exactly what he's saying, and is actually sensible. And that is a culture within the NRM and the ruling organization. Broadly as a nation, UPC, we have our values and we have our own ways. My view is that a political party and a political organization should be open for debate. What happened in NRA last week, where a group of people, you know, after 2 years of elections, say that the other one is our candidate forever. That in itself, if I was UPC president, I would call such a person to order.
Yes.
Because that is actually an indiscipline and would not be accepted in most other countries. And in fact, many other countries, that candidate you're trying to line up like that would lose. But part of the problem here is that other political parties have possibly not done as well in as far as many of these issues are concerned. But what I know from a UPC's perspective, you know, if you say elections are going to take place, you know, in 6 months' time, people come up, roll around, and in many cases, not necessarily the favorite may necessarily win. So that's what should happen in political parties. But generally also, candidates emerge, the kind of thing that I was trying to hint much earlier in political parties and organizations, that you will see some councillors whom you can say, this one is a likely leader in the future.
Yes.
You will see some young emerging members of parliament.
No. When Mao came to parliament, we were very happy.
Yes.
And he was a very good debater.
Yes.
Very good. But
sometimes debate is one thing, but debate and substance is the other. But you're quite right.
He had substance.
So indeed. So I think what is required in this country is for political parties to be allowed to grow, and for emerging political parties outside NRM to learn lessons and actually show leadership, abide by their constitutions, and leaders and parents in those political parties to take what some of the issues that Captain Babu is saying. The problem with the NRM is that it's actually stuck with one leader over a long period of time, patronage and patronage and patronage, and at the moment the challenges that the organization is facing, unfortunately, feeds into the country, and so other political parties also buy part of that bad manners. And the issue is, there's this very big guy who's been around for the last 40 years, whom nobody can, in many cases, tell things in public, but was telling things in public, maybe it also has its implications. What do you do? I think the challenge also for other Ugandans is this, to say that, oh, NRM Museveni should give us who is going to replace him nationally. I want to say this on the program. It's not the responsibility of NRM to determine who is going to be the next leader in this country. So the matter for NRM, whoever replaces Museveni, who Museveni is never replaced, that's a matter for them. Ugandans need to have a conversation. UPC needs to have a conversation and say, who is our leader, who at the next opportune moment, Mr. Museveni, just give us an opportunity so that when next I'm going to call Airstrip to talk about our programs on UPC, we talk about it so that you don't impinge us, you know. Ugandans determine who is that next leader to take over. In a political party, political parties determine who is their next leader. But it should really be freely, openly, and democratically, and should be done in such a manner that, well, people don't use their powers, their ages, their privileges, accidents of birth, or some of the monies that they've got in their pockets, some of which may have been looted. That's really the problem. But going forward, I'm very optimistic going forward for
that's cronism.
For the next
cronism.
Yeah.
You know?
We have had a democracy in this country. By the way, talking about the parliamentary thing, to make as a quick conclusion, the best parliament that delivered for this country was only 80. Only 80. That is just about, was it? About 80 members of parliament in the 60s. For 8 years, they delivered economic miracles in the country. The last parliament, which was a UPC-led parliament in the 80s, had 126 members of parliament. They delivered fundamentally, even amidst the war that we had here in Luwero. Today, at 556, that is more than nearly 4.5 times the size of the last multi-party parliament that UPC had. It's neither here nor there. To revisit in terms of contextual conclusion, yes, maybe it's not surprising some legislators come to the assembly. Either they don't only have a clue what to do, but perhaps they don't even have the space to make their contributions made. Maybe in part that is what Otafero was saying, and for the first time in a very long time, he had a bit of sense and substance what he was saying. Could only simply say that, well, why is he saying it now? Why couldn't he have been saying some of these things 3, 4, 5 years ago?
All right. Captain Francis Bobo, your last word.
Allow me.
Very quickly.
The President General of DP died, and he has lost a son again. The family has lost a son. His name is Paul. Paul Semakula. I'd like to send my condolences to the professor, who is the mother, the brother, Karori, and all the other relatives. It's unfortunate they have lost this person. My take is this. Whoever is in the position of ability to be able to change, to have a transformation in this country, please change. You've had your time. Time has come now for our children and the future of this country to get the right thing, and we know what the right thing is. And once we do that, even now, it's never late. It's never late. No. I do not believe in those who say, oh no, it's never late. The head of state, has heard from us. He should put the right people in the right places. In other, puts the right pegs in the right holes, and let's get the country going. And wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year.
Captain Francis Babu, many thanks for the submissions and the insight that you've been able to afford us this morning, and many thanks to you too, Joseph Otieno, UPC stalwart.
Indeed, my condolences to the Semogaris, the something that's had at the moment.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, many thanks for this. Let's now go to Stephen Mbide to give us the latest update on fares, that is transport fares, for those that are traveling up country for the festive season, more specifically Christmas.